What's the latest on what's going on with Amos? For those who don't know, Amos Miller, Pennsylvania Amish farmer, being persecuted for allegedly, I mean, I don't even know what they're saying anymore. That some of the meat he was selling was risky meat, might have been contaminated. He's operating without, requisite government oversight. What is the latest on what Amos Miller is going through?
So the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture went in and shut down his entire business in terms of any raw dairy products. So he's still able to sell things other than raw dairy, but they also went into his freezers and refrigerators and detained a whole bunch of items in there. They were inconsistent and contradictory as to which items were being detained. By law, they were supposed to tag each individual item. There's some they tagged, some they didn't, but they contradictorily claimed everything was seized, even if they had not properly tagged it. Then they ordered the destruction of all the food they had previously detained, even though they made no finding that any of it was unsafe for human consumption.
Did they destroy it?
Yeah, they ordered it destroyed. $500,000 worth of food products destroyed and wiped out. They told him he couldn't even feed his own pigs with it. They also began to dictate what he could feed himself with. They said, we'll let you have this much to feed your family, but not that much. So they're literally now dictating what he can feed his own family from his own farm, from his own food, not just what he can produce for others. They did massive testing on a whole bunch of products. They have been hiding those testing results to this very day. They only produced one test result that showed one item had a unidentified amount of listeria in it. We've followed up and discovered that was not an Amos Miller item. That was an item from a different farmer that was simply being stored at Amos Miller's. We did a complete review, complete testing of all of his products. No contamination in any of it.
Can I just need to stop you on the destruction of the foods? How does that happen? What does that look like? Do they take it, or do they order
what the law does, and there's what state of Pennsylvania just did. What the law says is you can only detain it for 5 days, and you can only order its destruction if you find it's unfit for human consumption, and there's nothing the farmer can do, or the food producer or the food store can do, or the food establishment can do that could make it fit for human consumption. That's the standard. They never met that standard. Instead, their new claim is if we haven't given you a permit, we can come in and detain your food and destroy your food. Just because we haven't given you a permit. That's it. That the law doesn't give them that. Pennsylvania state law has these very specifically categorized, structured remedies. They're ignoring all of it. They're saying they get to. And they also said that they could call it mislabeled because it doesn't have a Pennsylvania permit on the label, even though proper labeling is that it doesn't have a Pennsylvania permit. So it's a complete misapplication of the mislabeling law. Complete misapplication of the adulteration law, complete misapplication of the detention law, complete misapplication of the destruction law. And it is based first on an illegal search that they obtained by lying to the court. Then they came in and did a second search, unannounced. So they know that he's represented by me. They just show up at his house, show up at his farm, go in and give him these destruction orders, demand he do things, and they try to interrogate him outside the presence of counsel while a case is pending. That's who they are. So this week we filed our preliminary objections. We'll also be filing an appeal of the destruction order everything's going to be ruined by the time the destruction order is heard. So that, the ship has already sailed in part, but we're going to be challenging the legal basis for this going forward and demanding the state of Pennsylvania reimburse him for illegally destroying this material. And members of Free America Law Center, who are also members of Amos Miller's Organic Farm, are going to be bringing a separate civil rights suit because some of their property was destroyed. Their liberty interest is being invaded. But we filed our preliminary objections on Tuesday because there was an interpretation that maybe they served the complaint on a date that would mean the earliest possible response date would be this Tuesday. Of note, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to file something that's called a precipice, or precipice, however they pronounce it. But basically, it's something that says, hey, we gave them notice on this day that they needed to respond within 20 days. Of note, the state of Pennsylvania never filed that. So we filed our preliminary objections on Tuesday, thinking that maybe they could interpret this as somehow that being the deadline. The very next day, the state of Pennsylvania got around to filing that precipice notice. They were sitting on it, hoping to sandbag Amos Miller and me into not filing our preliminary objections in a timely manner. That's how unethical, unprofessional, and dishonest and dishonorable this Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture and the Attorney General's office has been during this case. While they're saying we want to resolve this, I think they're just flat out lying. They keep saying they're going to produce answers, and then they go do surprise raids and surprise inquisitions and interrogations. They say they want to get to the bottom of the safety, but refuse to produce the test results. They say, "Oh, I'll get around to that. Oh, I'm working on that for you. I'm going to get that to you." Still don't have it.
But Robert, the destruction, what do? Do they take it, confiscate it, and incinerate it?
So it's if he does anything with it, they can charge him with contempt or a crime.
Yeah.
So it's stuck where it's at,
and it's going to spoil.
Yeah, it already is. And so I was saying, look, before this spoils, let's let some of that at least get fed to the pigs. And they said, we'll get back to you. And the next day they went and did a secret raid and a secret inquisition interrogation. Just they think they can just lie to me repeatedly. It's clear they think this judge is a rubber stamp for government corruption. We're going to find out whether he is or he isn't. But clearly they have no respect for the court because they don't believe the court will ever enforce the law or hold them to account for these. And again, I researched it. This is the first time this has ever happened in the history of the state of Pennsylvania. I had lawyers research cases all across the country. Nobody can find an analogous case ever where anything of this scale has occurred. We're saying, look, because you don't have a permit, we're going to say we can seize all of your food, destroy all of your food, bankrupt your farm, prohibit you from eating your own food or feeding your own food to your own pigs. I mean, that's to the point that they're at. They're claiming authority that has never been claimed in the history of America. And unfortunately, there's some people out there that pretend to be on the raw milk side or that pretend to be on the fresh food side that are out there glorifying the PDA, that are out there critiquing Amos Miller because they're dupes, rubes, or frauds. The raw milk mamas of the world who are just fakes and liars. Going out there lying about Amos Miller rather than dealing with what's happening here. This is if the farmer doesn't realize this is a threat to them, they are asleep at the wheel. They are leading to their own demise because the state is claiming the authority to decide what we can put in our own refrigerators for our own personal consumption of food, even if we farmed the food ourselves. They want to use Amos's case to establish that precedent. That's what they're trying to do.
I'm almost reluctant to ask the question because I don't want to seem like I'm equating homeless or hungry to pigs. There is a homeless problem. There's people who need food.
There's a food shortage problem.
And they're
not. And by the way, all this food they ordered destroyed. They didn't find anything wrong with it. They didn't identify any of it as being adulterated. They didn't identify any of it as being truly mislabeled that would deceive anybody. They didn't identify any of it as having any. They tested all of it. And it didn't come back with any of this food they ordered destroyed. They didn't identify anything wrong with at all. And again, there's been no complaint by any customer of Amos Miller ever to the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. Ever. He's produced and distributed millions of food products over a quarter of a century to tens of thousands of Americans. And not one single customer has ever, one single member, one single person it was distributed to has ever filed a complaint ever against him. Well, right now, you have Costco, you have Walmart, you have these big companies with massive recalls over dangerous food that they distributed. And the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture didn't sue any of them. The Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture didn't detain any of their food. The Pennsylvania of Agriculture didn't demand any of their food be destroyed because the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture is in the pockets of big agriculture. They want to shut down small farming. They want to shut down alternative organic farming. They want to shut down raw milk and dairy milk. And they want to claim the authority to decide what you can feed your own family. Not only what access you have to get the food you want and need, and we have literally hundreds of sworn declarations from members of Amos Miller whose health is in jeopardy today because they cannot access this food. They need this food for their medical bases. For others, it's deeply religious, deeply philosophical, deeply political. So this impacts the First Amendment rights to Fifth Amendment rights, Sixth Amendment rights, 14th Amendment rights, a wide range of constitutional implications by what is proceeding and transpiring here in Amos Miller's case. So we filed objections on the grounds it violated the First Amendment, violated the Fifth Amendment, violated substantive due process property rights, violated substantive due process liberty rights, violated the Pennsylvania statutes, exceeded any authority the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture ever had or could have, doesn't meet the injunction standards, and we'll be filing legal briefs in support of those preliminary objections this week. And the hearing again scheduled for February 29th in Lancaster County Court of Common Pleas at 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon.
I kind of want to drive up there, Robert, but I'm not sure I can make that drive.